Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Welcome back to Travel Talk with Grant and Marissa.
Yeah, welcome.
And this week's episode is going to really kind of be the Grant show a little bit. We're going to be talking about how the value we got out of travel credit cards in 2025 and how we use them. And this is really Grant's area of expertise. So I'm kind of introducing things because this is the most you're going to hear my voice the entire episode.
Yeah, we just wanted to it's a new year. We just thought this was the best time to go back, look at how much one we paid in annual fees. It's quite a lot how much we pay for some of these travel
Yeah.
credit cards and seeing if it really is worth it. How much value like dollar amount value do we
Yeah.
get out of these cards, right?
And honestly, Grant just really wanted an excuse to make a good spreadsheet.
I
That's
did. Yeah,
that's what it was.
I've literally got a spreadsheet here with all the data. But before we jump into the sort of the hard numbers and
Yeah.
all my spreadsheet here, we thought we would just give a little rundown on just how we do use our travel credit
Yeah.
cards, what travel credit cards we use and recommend,
Mhm.
and sort of the strategy we use to using them,
Yeah,
right?
because it's a
Because
little different from most people.
yeah, and, there's a lot of different, approaches people have. A lot Some people don't even use credit cards. There are certain, financial gurus that even say you shouldn't use credit cards, and that is garbage. That
Grant
advice,
coming in hot.
uh, uh, like if you don't have we're not financial advisors, and we're not gonna recommend you getting credit if you can't,
No.
but if you have the means to, and you're capable of paying off your credit cards every single month and not going into debt with them, which is like what we do. We essentially
Mhm.
use credit cards as debit cards
Yeah.
and pay them off as soon as we use
Yeah.
them. It is a massive mistake not to use credit cards, and in particular travel credit cards, because if you travel at least a few times a year, you can save massive amounts of money like
Mhm.
we did
Yeah.
this year, right?
Mhm.
So let's first talk about how long we've sort of been
Okay.
doing this, right?
Yeah.
So travel credit cards, we first started to use them, it was probably like 3 years ago. We've had credit cards longer,
Yeah.
obviously, and we sort of started out with some more basic general cashback cards that you
Yeah.
don't really get good value from, right?
Yeah, so we started with some basic cashback cards because I was under the impression that was the most valuable type of card, and so that's really where we started, and then
Hmm.
Grant fell into a rabbit hole that we've never
I would
emerged
say
from.
the first probably actual travel credit card we got was it was like a Delta, one of these sort of like Delta Gold card or something, and it was
Mhm.
like okay, but it just gave it a fairly insignificant amount of Delta miles,
Yeah.
and you'll we'll talk about this a little more going through, but we've actually found that airline miles is sort of the least important for our travel adventures,
Yeah.
where we found them the hardest to use, the most sort of some people think that they're the most value for money when it comes to miles and points with travel credit cards, but in terms of how we use it, it just wasn't the case. So when we knew we wanted to start sort of traveling more, one of the key things we did was kind of just pick like a bucket list place
Yeah.
we wanted to go, right? And that one of those first places we picked was the Maldives, and there was a few resorts that we saw
Yeah.
the price of these places, right?
And we were like, "That's happening never."
Yeah. So, they're so ridiculously expensive, but we found out that if you build up enough points with a certain hotel brand, this can be much more attainable.
Yeah.
So we started with getting it was like a Marriott Bonvoy Boundless card, which is a fairly entry level hotel credit card.
Yeah.
And it's like it has an annual fee of $95, which if you've never had sort of travel credit cards before, that might seem a lot, but it's not really not at all. It's almost insignificant, that amount, $95 a year,
Yeah.
because it just in general gives you it by default every year with this credit card, you get one free hotel stay
Yeah.
with that's I think it's valued at like 30,000 points. So that by default pays for and then more so.
Yeah.
So if you're at least going to stay in one Marriott hotel in a
It's
year,
a good one to have.
this travel
Credit.
credit card is a no-brainer, and purchase you make just builds points with Marriott. So we use
And
the yeah.
I was just gonna say, so we got that one, and then with the goal of we want to use this to go to the Maldives. That's the only way we're gonna be able to do it.
Yeah.
And so we just kind of for a year spent
Pretty much everything on this card.
we put everything on this card
Yeah.
working towards that goal.
And I would say like that the first year we got this card, we weren't even traveling that much.
Mm-mm.
It was more a building. This is what kind of in our like saving and like
Yeah.
building points and stuff, right? Year.
Yeah.
And we probably did that for about a year or so, yeah, on this card. And that was a great starter. And we still to this day use that card.
Yeah.
We use that card quite a lot for most everyday purchases because it gives you a flat two Marriott points for every dollar spent, regardless of what you spend it on.
Mm-hmm.
And then like if you stay at Marriott and don't use points, like you just spend it with cash or whatever, use your card, you get like 5 times points and you get all these like
Yeah.
multipliers. Marissa quite often will be like, "What card do you want me to use?"
Yeah, because
Right?
I can't keep straight in my head because Grant has a system of what he wants to use for what.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll just, if I'm not sure, I'll just ask
Mm-hmm.
and you'll tell me.
Yeah. Um,
This is really Grant's show.
yeah. But so that was one of the cards, and then I kind of fell down a rabbit hole of there's two other cards that we kind of now use permanently, like three total. So the Marriott and then two other ones. But before we got to that stage, we kind of were in this let's say the sign up bonus stage
Oh,
of
yeah.
travel credit cards, and this is a key period. Like if you know you're about to start traveling like next year or something,
Yeah.
start getting as many travel credit cards as you can that have a very low annual fee or no annual fee.
Yeah.
And we did this for certain, like we have a Hilton credit card, we have a IHG like international intercontinental hotels credit card, we have some other one, but yeah, essentially some of these credit cards, in order to get you signed up, they'll give you like 100,000 points,
Yeah.
and that can be a real easy way to just straight up make a whole bunch of like status and all that kind of stuff with points quickly. But those cards, I would say we've kind of retired now. They weren't
Yeah.
as good as the ones we currently use. So those ones just kind of sit there. We didn't cancel them because that was like bad for your credit. So we just keep them. We
Yep.
have like one recurring payment on them or something.
Yeah.
Like
And
we'll put like
every once in a while we'll buy
yeah, or we
something.
put something really insignificant like I don't know, some sort of streaming service or something on one of them.
Our water bill.
Yeah, like just something to keep
Yeah.
them paying, but they essentially just live in a drawer here and not even in our wallet,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then I would say once we started traveling more, so sort of around the time we sort of went to the Maldives,
Mm-hmm.
we picked up, I think at this point we picked up our next one, which was the Chase Sapphire Preferred card. And
Yeah.
this is still one of the ones we use today.
Mm-hmm.
This is another fairly low annual fee of $95, if I recall correctly. And this one doesn't like necessarily do too much. Like there's some perks like, oh, you get like $50 back if you book a hotel in the portal. And like, honestly, we don't even really use that. The main thing we use this card for is they have a lot of, there's a lot of transfer partners you can transfer
Yeah.
Chase points to. So we have these as pretty flexible ones that we can transfer to Marriott, to Hilton, to airlines, to all that. So it's sort
Yeah.
of a good default credit card brand.
Yeah.
But it also gives very good points value for like dining out in restaurants, and then also while traveling. So this one essentially lives in my wallet, but we only really use it at home for restaurants,
Mm-hmm.
and then we will use this card mostly when we're out of the
Abroad.
country, like
Yeah.
on a trip.
And backing up a second,
Mm.
what I also want to add is when we started with the Marriott Bonvoy card and then we went to the Maldives, it was kind of a little bit like catnip because that was
Yeah.
by far the biggest adventure we'd had and the nicest, most exotic place we'd ever stayed. Just every bit of that resort was so incredible. It was like, oh, this is what we can get by doing this. Like we felt
Oh yeah.
and saw the
Because
real, tangible
yeah,
end game.
because this was a place we could never afford to stay. Like
Never afford.
this, we stayed in. If you haven't seen this, like they were our very early vlogs. They're not that great,
They're not great.
but
We didn't know what we were
we have
doing.
like we have like a short that on Instagram. It kind of took off a little while ago, and it was off of me in like the pool on a villa in the wind. It was terrible weather. So because we
Sweet.
paid what the cheapest way to possibly go to the Maldives was to go in the off season. So we went in the off season with points, and it still, I can't remember the exact amount here, but it's say I think it would have cost us about, it was something like $2,000 a night to stay
Yeah.
in this villa in the
Yeah.
Maldives. So it would have been like it was basically a $10,000 vacation we got for
Yep. For
free.
free.
So that was, yeah, as you said, it was a bit like, oh, look at
Oh, this
this.
is what we
This
can
is
this is
cool.
what we can do. Continue. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
so we did that, and then we picked up this other one, just finding more ways to earn points
Yeah.
on the things we normally buy. So like this, building these points on credit cards is just buying things we normally would buy,
Yep.
right? So it's not like we're spending money to make it,
Yeah.
like, to get points for the sake of it. We're like literally just buying things we normally would. So we picked up this Chase Sapphire card, and that's a good just all around while we're traveling or we're dining out. It just earns extra points,
Yep.
and it's got a couple of little perks that are useful. And but that's, as I said, that's kind of just like an in between card we use to just like top up points with
Yeah.
certain brands or for certain trips.
Yep.
The biggest one I would say now, like the Marriott's probably one of the most significant ones because we invest pretty heavily in the Marriott ecosystem just because
Yeah.
we've had a lot of points there.
Yep.
But I would say the biggest one we had was we picked this up a little over a year ago, and that was the
Mm-hmm.
American Express Platinum card. And
Woohoo.
this is a card that is the significant like driver of a lot of our like sort of daily, week to week, sort of a lot of the points we earn, and a lot
Mm-hmm.
of the essentially just like value,
Yeah.
yearly value we get that isn't even necessarily always linked to a specific trip.
And I think this is also the one that we debated the most
Oh yeah,
before we dove in. We talked about this for a while before we
because yeah,
finally invested
just a
in
little
it.
caveat here. Like in my spreadsheet, we spent $890 in annual fees on this card alone last year. And that's because at the time, it's actually now gone up. So next year, this year's going to be even more. It was $695 for
Cool.
one card, and then an additional like $195 for the additional card holder. You can get a free card, like additional card holder, but they don't get the lounge access. So
Oh, that's trash.
you can get access to the Amex Centurion lounges, which we will often use in London and things like
Mm-hmm.
that. Very nice lounge, and we didn't want to not sort of both of us be able to use these
Yeah,
perks
that
because
would
we
suck.
always travel together. Hence
Yeah.
the name of our
Yeah.
channel, right?
Yep.
It's not Grant and sometimes Marissa, or Marissa and sometimes Grant. It's Grant and Marissa because we always travel together. So we did that, but now it's even going up hard. But so yeah, this was like $1,000, essentially let's just call it
An even
$1,000.
$1,000. Yeah.
And in addition to it is actually over $1,000 we spent with these two other cards that we pay fees for, right? So we were like, whoa, this is a significant chunk. But we'll break down exactly what we got out of that in a
Yeah.
second. But I would say the Amex card is the one we use in particular for booking flights. Flights, I think you get 5 times miles for every dollar you spend on a flight. So spend, $1,000 on a flight. That's 5,000 miles and
Yep.
points. So it's just an easy way to earn like a big chunk of points at a time every trip you take.
Yep.
And it's also it sort of feels cool, this card. It's like nice and
You feel a little fancy when you
metallic.
use
My
it.
one's like a mirror now, the
Yeah. Mine
design
has
of it.
flowers on it.
Yeah.
Grant asked if I wanted the mirror, and I was like, no, mine's
You
pretty.
feel more like fancy using
Yeah.
this card,
You
right?
feel a little bougie.
Yeah. So that's our general, like, so those three cards are the ones we now use all the time. So the Chase Marriott Bonvoy card, the Chase Sapphire Preferred card, and then the Amex Platinum card.
Yep.
Right? So
Sorry, I keep yawning.
they're the three. Sorry, I'm boring you with all
I'm
these
so
details.
sorry.
But and I think this is probably also a time before we jump into those numbers to just sort of talk about our philosophy of using
Yeah.
points, right?
Because it's a little different from what you will hear in the like travel points ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
There's two camps, one of which is much more prominent, and we fall into the other camp.
Yeah. The most people that want to get like the exact best value out
Mhm.
of their points say that using your miles and points for airline miles, in particular for traveling like business class, first class tickets,
Yeah.
makes a lot of sense because dollar value, you can say like, oh, I spent 500,000 points and I got this like $10,000 business class seat.
Yeah.
Like that dollar for dollar, like I got the most value, right?
Yeah. I was going to say, but there's two downsides with this.
Mm-hmm.
The first is from the little bit we've kind of poked at it, not a little bit, the significant amount of poking we've done and research we've done, it feels as
Hard.
if, yeah, it's hard. You have to be a lot more flexible with where you're going to fly to, when you're going to fly. And I work full time. We have very specific days and times. Like we're trying to maximize some PTO here.
I think that's a good point.
So that flexibility we found, we don't have it.
Yeah,
And it's a pretty significant downside to that strategy. It just doesn't work for us.
I think that strategy was made very prevalent by a lot of full-time travel YouTubers.
Hmm.
So they were always traveling and could essentially drop everything
And
like
go.
at a moment's notice
Yeah.
to pick up the like this super cheap flight,
Yep.
right?
I've also known someone in my life who, not a travel YouTuber, was doing this a decade before travel vlogging was a thing,
Mhm.
but on the weekends would just like pick up and fly wherever
Mm.
to get points,
Mm. Oh, yeah, yeah.
and would just pick out like 1 or 2 weekends a
Yeah.
month, just do that. And I don't want to spend my weekends that
Yeah.
way.
And just yeah, just general it's just super hard to like just find like if you're just planning your normal like vacation,
Hmm.
in 3 months I'm going to this place
Yeah.
and yeah, you're traveling in this week of the month or whatever,
Yeah.
you're going to have to if you want to use miles and points, you're probably going to have to spend millions of them,
Hmm.
which is an astronomical amount and it's going to
Yeah.
be so expensive and the second thing here, which is one of the main reasons why, like, how I justify the
Yeah.
difference here is apart from a couple of times, we're always economy flyers,
Hmm.
right? We
Yes.
did splurge once or twice
Yes.
if we could find like a reasonably priced
Yeah.
deal. But I will never, unless I become like a millionaire, like spend like $10,000 on a seat in an airplane.
Yeah. That's
Like
not worth it.
that is never going to be something I'm actually spending money on, right?
Hmm.
I would much prefer to spend that amount of money on like this amazing resort in the Maldives or something, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like I would rather a week in the Maldives over one like 15-hour flight in
Yeah.
business class.
And because you're going to be, I'm on this plane for X amount of time, even if you're in economy, it's like, I just have to get through this 8 to 12 to 14 hours, whatever the amount of time is.
Mhm.
And then it's done.
Yeah.
Whereas whenever you get to where you're going, while we don't spend a ton of time in the hotel, that's something you're going to keep coming back to every day. Even if we're staying in a city, like
Yeah.
sometimes we don't stay in a super nice hotel,
Yeah.
but if we can do a couple nights somewhere really nice, it's just like
I'd
a little treat.
I'd prefer like a week of comfort over like 15 hours of comfort,
Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yes.
And I think it like having the ability to use points and stay in some of these other like really nice resorts or very expensive places has opened up the destinations we can travel to
For sure.
more so than spending them on flights would be.
Yeah.
Like, yes, like you're probably gonna go in the comments and be like, but I can save so much more money.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree. Like if you have the time, the flexibility, and you prefer investing your points in flights, power to you.
Yeah.
That's just not what we prefer to do.
Or if you're in a situation, we have friends that did this where you've got a really big thing coming up. Like it was their honeymoon.
Yeah, yeah,
So they were like, this is where we're going to go. We want to fly first class going there.
yeah.
And so they spent a
We're gonna
year, if
splurge.
not two, saving up points to splurge on this very specific occasion.
Yes, that's fine.
That's totally
Yeah.
justified. But
But if
if
you're
we're
like a
talking about regular, if I feel like
this is normal everyday use of them sort of thing,
and
right?
I think sort of the theme of our podcast is getting to a place where you can maximize how much you travel as much as possible,
Mhm.
that's not the strategy we're talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But no, so that, yeah, just in general, that is our strategy. Yes, we will more often than not pump all of our points into a hotel destination stay, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And we've generally gotten to a rotation now of like we probably travel 4 to 5 times a year now.
Yeah. And we have
And
like one big
yeah,
ticket,
generally one trip will be the big ticket one that we load all the points into.
and the
We'll
others are to build the
we'll go
points.
there, yeah, and then we'll spend the next year of trips
Yeah.
building points for the next big
Yeah. And we
destination.
also have a running wish list of future target
Hotels.
destinations
Yeah,
that we are
I
building
think it is
towards.
that's actually a really good point. Like we will often browse like a Marriott website, just finding these like
Dream destinations.
dream destinations. Be like maybe one day, like we'll be like, okay, we can only do maybe one of these a year. So let's
Yeah.
like plan around that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
We have one that we want to go to, and I won't say where it is, but I have literally gotten back into horseback riding because they
So
have
prepare.
horseback riding there, but you need to like have been recently up on your
Yeah.
skills. And so I got back into horseback riding so that when we take that trip, I am ready.
It's not in 2026.
It's not happening
No.
this year. Sad about it.
Our Singapore, our trip in October to Singapore, that is our points dump this year, right?
Can you find a
You
different
don't like the word
word?
points dump?
No, that's
Okay.
terrible.
That's our so yeah,
Splurge.
the Singapore trip this year is our splurge with points.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Are we ready for the moment now? The
Yeah,
how
I'm a
much we
little
have saved.
scared.
How much we have saved.
I'm ready.
All right. I was gonna ask you like how much you think was saved, but you've looked at the spreadsheet. And I think I told you, so
I will say he
I
had me guess, and my guess was about half of
yeah.
what we saved.
Hmm.
And then he told me, and my jaw was on the floor for an
Yeah.
hour.
So let's we talked about it earlier, but just like while we're talking about the numbers now, let's just reiterate. So right off the bat, before any value has been returned,
Right.
we are negative $1,080 every year.
Okay. So
Okay.
the final number is taking into account that we start in the
What
negative.
we say at the end of like saved this much or like we made this much or
Yeah.
whatever, that is minus $1,090. Okay. So that is the negative. That's what we're starting below zero at negative 1,080.
Okay,
Okay.
cool.
So that is the 3 cards we talked about earlier.
Okay.
Okay. So I think the first thing I'll probably start a little bit further down here. The bulk of what we saved
Mhm.
this year was with hotel stays.
Oh,
So
shocking.
so we talked
Yeah.
about this. We put most of the points that we earn through this. So we stayed at 3 hotels that we for free this year.
That's cool.
One was Hilton Heathrow Airport in London.
Woo!
Fancy. But no,
So
this was one
fancy.
night at the end of our UK road trip. That was just like a certain amount of points. I was like, yeah, we can stay here for free. Let's
Yeah.
just use it. So that was one that was valued at $100. Let's give or take $100.
Big money, big money.
Recently in Frankfurt,
Hmm.
one night, the Loom Boutique Hotel, very
Okay.
nice.
That was
That was
nice.
about $130 a night on
Okay.
average. So we said that. So it's at $230 right now.
Hmm.
But then we take a little bit of an extra bump up here. Our big trip last year that we put all the Marriott points into
Yeah.
was Leopard Sands Kruger Park.
And if you've not watched those videos, go watch them and watch the rhino video.
Yeah, please.
Thank you.
That's she's doing that for me because I get very sad.
I'm also very sad. Continue though. So how much?
So this was 5 nights
Mhm.
at a brand new resort right next to Kruger National Park.
Okay.
Fancy villa,
Mhm.
all inclusive. So all except for alcohol, but like all the meals, safari drives,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Plunge pool off the room.
Yeah, so all that stuff included. All
Yeah.
we had to pay for was the flights to get there and all of the injections and stuff we needed before.
I forgot about all the vaccines we got.
So it wasn't free entirely. It was the flights and that was it.
And we also got a bottle of wine almost every night because it was like $5.
Yeah, it was very cheap there,
It's awesome.
the alcohol. But we saved 5 nights at this hotel. It's rough. This is a rough estimate because obviously we didn't pay we didn't get it minus off. But I looked up the exact dates we're staying this year.
Mhm.
So January
Oh.
this year compared to January last year, and that would have cost $5,710. So we got a $5,710 hotel stay absolutely free. So that was all using miles and points from the sort of the prior year.
Yeah.
So, like, obviously, the building points and when we spend them will obviously impact how much we save every year.
Yeah.
Like, say we decided to hoard the points for an extra year,
Yeah. Yeah.
we wouldn't get as much value that
Mm-hmm.
year, right?
Right.
So these can fluctuate the sort of overall amount we would save every year,
Yeah.
but on average, we're probably staying at a hotel at this caliber with those points
Yeah.
most years.
Mm-hmm.
So give or take, I'd say about this is how much we probably are saving each year.
Yeah.
So like the year before, we probably saved even more because we
Yeah.
stayed in the Maldives, which was more
And
expensive.
then we
And
also stayed at that hotel in Dublin, the fancy hotel in Dublin.
that was the prior year,
Was
yeah.
that was last year?
Nope,
Was that 2 years ago?
that was 2024.
Oh shoot. Okay.
Yeah. But that was a different one.
Oh,
That
I was thinking I forgot it's a new year. That's
it's
why. Yeah,
2026.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
By last year I meant
But
you
yeah,
know what
but
I mean.
that was one we actually did pay for. We'll
I
talk
thought
about that one. Well,
oh, okay.
I'll explain that one. See, Marissa, I just said it was Passenger Princess.
I just show up. He tells me what climate to pack for.
So there was a different. I'll bring this up now because we are talking about hotels.
Yeah.
One of the perks we get from the Amex Platinum card is we get a certain dollar amount back if we stay at what they call like the Fine Hotels collection, and you have to book through the Amex like travel portal, and then you book a normal hotel. So it can even be like a Marriott or Hilton or whatever if it's under this category,
Yeah.
and we get a certain amount back.
Mhm.
They actually changed this perk a couple of months ago, so we actually got a little bit of like a weird double dip situation where we had already gotten some cash back, but then they improved it. So now this perk is $300 back every like semi-annual, like well, biannually. Is biannually the
You
right
want
word here?
semi-annual.
Semi-annual. I forget which way. Isn't biannual twice a year as well?
Yeah. Biennial is every 2 years. So you want biannual.
As that's what I was
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
biannual. But
Sorry.
is this is a weird tangent, but biannual and
It's the
semi-annual are
same
the same
thing.
thing.
Yeah.
That's confusing. But
It is
anyway,
confusing, but people are dumb.
biannually, you get $300 back. So it's a total value of $600 back a year if you stay in like essentially two hotels.
Yeah.
So because that changed halfway through the year, we didn't get the full value of this, but we got $500 back from the Fine Hotels collection using the Amex Platinum card.
Nice.
So that was a booking that we paid up front for our upcoming stay in Lisbon, Portugal.
Oh, cool.
So that is a Fine Hotels collection. That's like a Hilton hotel.
I have no idea where we're staying.
You'll see it.
Everything's a surprise.
You'll see it shortly.
It's gonna be great
on the vlog. But and then the other one we stayed at was earlier this year. That fancy night that we stayed at Villa Copenhagen.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, that was a nice hotel.
Yeah, so very nice hotel.
It's a very nice
So
hotel.
that I put under the sort of perks category here.
Okay.
That's like a perk because we get money back. We
Okay.
don't necessarily use points on it.
Yeah.
But we get perks.
So do we want to now segue into the
Yeah.
perks?
Yeah.
Okay.
So some of these, there are a lot here, and some of these are Ellie, the puppy has made a appearance.
Hi, babe.
For the.
I know you gotta. You're a star. Come on.
Come on. No.
Oh.
No. She's just gonna
good
go lay down.
girl.
Good girl, Ellie.
Good girl, Ellie. She said I'm gonna come around this way.
No.
Hi, baby.
Why are you encouraging her?
It's resistance is futile, Grant.
Anyway, so yeah, let's start talking about the perks. So some of these I would definitely put in the category of we're getting value, but we might not actually bother with this thing
Without this,
if we didn't have this being as a cashback. Yeah. But I will say that the amount we still make back here more than we spend in the annual fees on the things we would spend money on regardless.
Okay.
So let's talk about some of these. So the first one I got here is Resi. This is a perk that you get. Once again, this was an updated perk with American Express, and it was one we didn't get like a few months ago, or like 6 months ago, so whenever they made this change. But essentially, every quarter we get $100 back for dining out at restaurants at home
Yeah.
that fall under the Resi like reservation app system.
Yeah.
There's some fancy restaurants in like downtown near us, and we go there once. We go to one of these restaurants once a quarter,
Mhm.
sort of splurge. We don't generally like go to super fancy restaurants or
No.
spend like a decent amount of money at
No.
them. If we do, we normally just like be fairly normal, just get like
Yeah.
a main meal and like a
And
drink.
usually the only time we go somewhere fancy is on my birthday because I make Grant go to a fancy sushi place with me every year.
But anyway, so we get this back now. So we would go to a restaurant anyway. So we just pick a fancier place to get a
Yeah.
slightly more dollar value. So
Mhm.
we got $200 back this year with
Nice.
Resi, which is great.
Mhm.
We already talked about fine hotels. That was 500. And then also on the fine hotels front, we do every time we stay at one of these hotels, we get $100 on-site credit as
Mhm.
well. So
So
that was in Villa
that
Copenhagen.
really nice meal we had.
Yeah,
Okay. Yep. Yep.
really
Yep.
expensive
It
meal
was
as our first meal.
extremely
We got a
expensive.
burger and you got I can't even remember, steak or
I got a
something.
steak of some sort.
Ended up being like 120
Wasn't it
bucks or
veal?
something.
Did I get a
Yeah, I think
veal?
that's right.
Yeah. It
Ended up being like
was
120 bucks or
it was
something.
absurd,
But
but really good.
but yeah, that was an on-site credit. We didn't get more than that because we haven't stayed in
Yeah.
Lisbon yet in Portugal.
Okay.
So that one is not on my spreadsheet.
Okay.
Next one is one of the categories that we probably wouldn't spend this every year, but
Mm.
it is a perk. There's a $300 for Equinox.
The hell is Equinox?
Equinox is technically a fancy gym,
Oh.
but what we get is the digital membership, which links to our Soul Cycle bike.
Oh, that's why
So
we have that.
the bike statistics and stuff we get on our bike
Mhm.
and the classes if we do we don't use them really all that often, but it gives you you never use it, but I do sometimes. Essentially, we bought this bike.
It's not my fault. Ellie ate my biking shoe.
Essentially, we bought this bike because it was during like I think it was like we needed to exercise more, and we ended up we got even more back the initial year. We got this MX Platinum card to
Yeah.
get the bike, but now every year we get the analytics like so like your speed and how
Yeah.
much calories and all that kind of stuff, which you
Mhm.
have to pay a subscription to get, which is kind of
So we get that
stupid.
through
We get
Equinox.
that and the
Okay.
classes through this every year, so we didn't have to
Nice.
pay for that, which
Okay.
is that's a nice little perk.
Yeah.
So the fact they didn't get rid of that was good because otherwise that bike would have been kind of useless. You can ride it, just not know like
Just not know what's going on.
yeah.
Yeah.
So we got $300 back from that every year, which is great.
Cool.
Next one we would use 100%. We get $209 back for Clear.
Love Clear.
Clear is
Big
amazing.
fan.
This is one that it is an annual subscription, Clear.
Mhm.
So I think we have to pay a little bit out of pocket for two of us,
Okay.
but
Worth
209
it.
is like I think we pay like $60 more or something,
Yeah.
but we get both of us
Yeah.
have a full year of Clear.
And just a second, in case you're unfamiliar with what Clear is, it's a program. It's not all airports in the US, but it's at a lot of them. And
Mhm.
essentially, what you're paying for is they scan it's an independent company. It's independent from like TSA, but they scan in your biometrics. And then that way, when you go through security at the airport, you go to the little clear aisle
Mhm.
and you go to a little machine. It
Yeah.
scans your eyes, your face, your fingerprint, or whatever. And it just basically verifies who you are. So you skip the line of waiting in security. And then you can go right to actually putting your stuff in the machine.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Definitely worth it if you travel
if you
if you travel at least a couple times a year
especially if you're traveling
in the US.
domestically in the US,
Yeah.
it'll save you so much time, and that paired with TSA PreCheck is just a dream.
Yeah. All right. Next one is one we probably wouldn't spend otherwise because we don't really use it that much. But Walmart Plus, we get that for free with this card.
Mhm.
So that's a saving of $167 a
Yeah, we've
year.
used it a few
A few
times.
times.
Yeah.
If like we can't get something on Amazon or we need
Yeah.
something, it's like it's essentially just like Amazon Prime or whatever. It's just like free shipping and
Yeah.
blah blah blah, all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. Next one is another new perk that they added. Once every quarter, you get $75 back at Lululemon.
Yeah.
Probably something we wouldn't spend money on normally,
No.
but we can get a nice like garment once a quarter.
So if you are a Lululemon fan and you have items that you are a big fan of, let me know in the comments because I've struggled to
Mm,
find something I really like so far. I've gotten a couple like a zip up hoodie and then like another pullover, and I
mm,
haven't loved them. So if
yeah.
there's items you're like, yes, this is the thing, please tell me.
Yeah, but that's a nice little perk. We saved $150 last year with
Yep.
that perk. Then the next one, once again, I don't think I'll be spending. I bought it out of pure just like
Curiosity.
intrigue and curiosity. You get like $200 a year on Aura rings. There's little like Fitbit trackers.
Yep.
I didn't quite like it. It didn't. You have to. Long story short, you have to then buy it. You have to buy a subscription to get the
Separate from the
analytics. And
ring.
I was like, I can't be well. Like I've got a Fitbit that I get that stuff for free.
Yep.
But there was like a clearance model that was legitimately like $200, and we got $200 back. So it was
Yep.
essentially a free ring to try it
To
out.
try it
So
out.
we probably won't be using this one in the future, but
Yeah.
added it here just for
Yeah.
the posterity, you know.
Mhm.
Next one, we do use this one twice a year. We get $50 back at Saks
Yeah,
Fifth
we've gotten some
Avenue.
awesome stuff too.
We like once again, we probably wouldn't shop at Saks normally, but
No.
we've been able to. You just go online and we buy like we've bought like glasses, like drinking glasses
We've
and
gotten
like
wine glasses, we've gotten
yeah,
highball glasses, we got
yeah.
a set of R& and Co hair
Yeah,
care.
it's like
So we've gotten
tangible
some cool
stuff that we
stuff.
use,
Yeah.
but it's just something we can use every year, which is good.
Yeah.
Next one, once again, we probably wouldn't actually use this, but because we do have it, we use it religiously every month. And this is Uber Eats,
Yes.
and we got $200 from Uber Eats.
Yeah.
I think it's like $15 a month. And in December, you get like $35 or something.
Yeah.
So we get like a pizza or something like once a month on
Yeah.
this, and I refuse to pay the extra for like delivery and stuff, so we just go pick up with it.
There's also a really good Peruvian chicken place
Hmm.
near our house. So we'll either do pizza or Peruvian chicken.
Yeah,
It's
so
really
but
good.
it's a nice little every month we save with
Yeah.
this, which is great. The next one is every year you get $200 back, just an incidental airline fee. So every
What does
year
that mean?
you essentially just pick an airline once a year,
Hmm.
and then you get $200 worth of like cash where you can either like pick like pay your like seat. You know, sometimes like airline will charge you like $50 to sit in a certain
Oh
seat.
yeah. Yeah.
It
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
it's not an upgrade, but it's like
Yeah.
that. Or sometimes we've purchased United Club passes to get
Oh yeah.
into the
Yeah. Yeah.
lounge.
Yeah.
That comes under
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Or worst case scenario, you can't find anything like that. You can like buy some food or drink or something on
Oh.
an
Okay.
airplane. You get $200 back a year.
Cool.
So we did that. I think we with United
Yeah.
this year we bought like lounge passes,
Oh, nice.
which
Okay.
was nice. Next one is you get $300 back, what's called the digital entertainment credit, which is just like that's just like streaming services.
Okay.
So some of the streaming services that we already use are we just use the Amex Platinum card and we get it all back. So I
Okay.
think we've jumped between which ones we've had
Yeah.
on the past
Mhm.
because we've sometimes like turned things off
Yeah.
and whatever. But I think currently I think we use it for Paramount Plus and Peacock.
Okay.
So we get $25 a month
Hmm.
back for that. So that's just like free streaming services, whatever you
I
use.
feel like I'm learning so much about how our household runs.
And then there's one more perk here under that I've got under perks here, and this is Priority Pass. So
Mm.
this is we talked earlier about how the Amex card gets us into Centurion lounges. It also gets us into lounges like kind of in most
Yeah.
airports.
What is Priority Pass if people
And
don't know?
Priority Pass is essentially a airport lounge network,
Okay.
and a bunch of if a lounge is not like the American Airlines lounge or the Lufthansa
Hmm.
lounge, it's like the um OSL lounge in
Yeah.
Oslo
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
went to, or like they're generally just got very generic names
Yeah.
like the
The Club Lounge or
yeah,
something
like
like
all
that.
these kind of
Yeah.
ones. They're owned by a sort of a larger company called Priority
Yeah.
Pass, and you get in for free, and you get um a free visitor as well.
Hmm.
Because we both have the American Express card, we both have our own priority passes. But
Yeah.
for the sake of this, if we were paying for this out of pocket,
Hmm.
we would just get one priority pass, and like one of us would be the guest.
Right.
That for unlimited priority pass visits, which what we get,
Hmm.
if you were buying that on their website,
Hmm.
$469 a year.
What?
Yes.
What?
So
That's
that
crazy.
being quite conservative, I put that as $469
Okay.
because and we could go really gritty here and say like how much money we saved for like every drink we got in the like
Yeah.
airport
I feel like
lounge.
that would
And
be really
that would
hard to
be
count
really
up.
stressful. So I just put a flat fee on us going to lounges
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's fair.
as $469. I didn't even put a dollar amount on like Centurion lounges or
Yeah.
whatever.
So when we're talking about lounges, like that's just like the access to get in, but yeah, we're not counting the food we ate, the drinks we got, which are all
Yeah,
free.
because we would probably like say we went to it, we were in an airport for a couple of hours. we would probably easily be spending like $80 on a meal and a drink or
Oh,
something.
yeah, for sure.
So each time we go into a lounge, you could theoretically say we saved this much amount of money.
You
But
could ballpark it.
for
Yeah,
this, I'm just gonna put the dollar amount on the amount you would pay
that
for
makes
that
sense.
pass.
Yeah.
So overall, with all those perks,
Mhm.
we saved $3,095 this year.
That's
So
crazy.
I looked through earlier and I kind of clicked on all those ones that I said, like, oh, we probably wouldn't use that.
Yeah.
Take about $1,000 off that.
Okay.
So we would still be doubling that like annual like we would be spending almost $1,000 but still making
2,000.
like 2,000, so we would be $1,000 up
Just from those perks
just
alone.
from those
Okay, so where are we
perks
at so far? We've talked
outside.
about perks and hotel
So
stays.
we're almost done. So we've got
Okay.
two here. Like so the two together, we're looking at minus the $1,000 in fees at about $8,000.
Okay.
But final number is bumped up a little bit. This is a hopefully not something we would save on every year, but this is something all of the both the Amex Platinum and the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card have built-in insurance. So we buy travel insurance externally
Yeah.
because like that's a little more comprehensive
Yeah.
for medical stuff and things like
Mhm.
that,
Which we've also used.
which I've also used. That's not on here though because it's not credit card. We pay for that separately, so keep it separate. But we did use car insurance this
Oh,
year
yeah, we did.
because we did a road trip in the UK
Mhm.
and
Little scratch, little scratch, scratch.
scratch the car a little bit. Ended up being about $725 worth of damage, according to Hertz. I think that's a
Whoops. I
little bit inflated.
I think that's a smidge inflated. I will say it was very funny. We got out of the car and the inspector guy realized we were Americans and he immediately ran to the left
The
side
corner,
mirror and looked at it and then looked at the corner. It was
yeah.
very funny.
Looked at the front corner in the mirror. That's where we'd hit some little walls, like trying to park in a spot that was too small, and whatever. But
Anyways.
we saved $725 with travel car insurance with that. So not we didn't pay anything out of pocket. It was
Nice.
all covered. Didn't have to buy their insurance. Like
Mhm.
how like they always be like, hey, you
You
spend
should buy our
spend
insurance. Yeah.
$400 or whatever, and you're covered. We had to buy no insurance at the counter,
Yeah.
so pure saving there.
Yeah.
So grand total,
Mhm.
so minus the $1,000 and 80.
Look who made an appearance.
Yeah, minus the $1,000 and 80. Our grand total for what we saved with travel credit cards this year was $8,679.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
That is a bananas amount of money. Hi, Flynn. You good boy. Hi.
Is fleeing our other dog. I don't know if you can quite see him on camera, but
You
just a little bit.
good boy.
But yeah, so that is like, so it seems like, $1,000 out of pocket every year at the start
Yeah.
of every year seems like a lot. Seems like, oh,
Yeah.
can't quite justify that. We ended up making quite a lot more than that. But I do have to say,
Crazy.
if you don't travel quite as extensively as we do,
Yeah.
and you want to make this a lot simpler, I would say just go for like the Sapphire Preferred and and then your hotel choice.
Hmm.
Spend maybe just under $200 a year.
Yeah.
You could probably still get you could still get a similar value to what we saved at Leopard Sand, like
Yeah.
$5,000. Like you could save that. So the Amex Platinum is just extra perks,
It's
extra
got extra fun little goodies.
little fun stuff because we're traveling so much,
Yeah.
making the airport lounges and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So that's just a little bonus and a little more like we travel so much that we will get value out of this.
Yeah.
But there are definitely you can be a little more cost effective and get some of these more entry level cards. But it's not bad. Was that surprising that
That was
number?
really surprising. When
Yeah.
he initially told me he did all the math and had me guess, I think I ballparked it at like $4,000
Hmm.
and it wound up being 8,600 and change.
Yeah.
So I'm pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. And it is nice just to do this, honestly, because like they did up American Express did up their price again this year. So
Yeah.
I was a bit like, ooh, like, $1,000, that's quite a lot. Are we actually getting value out of this? I'm like, oh yeah.
Oh, yeah, we are.
Like just that alone, like just the Amex card alone, we're getting like, as I said, like $3,000
Yeah.
out of.
So most of those perks we listed, like the Resi, the Fine Hotels, Clear, all those
That's all
things,
American
that's
Express.
all from the Amex Platinum.
Yeah. The only, yeah, and the other, like, and the one thing we sort of didn't talk about here too is that you can build one of the good things with Amex Platinum too is you can link it to Rakuten.
Oh
So this is
yeah,
a little
we didn't
bonus
even talk
tip.
about Rakuten.
Rakuten is normally a cashback, like online shopping cashback
Mhm.
service, and that like gives you dollar amount back. But if you have an American Express Platinum card,
You get
you
points.
can flip a little switch in the settings, and instead you earn Amex points. So whenever there's some like really big offer from Rakuten, we were making some final planning stuff for Lisbon in Portugal,
Mhm.
and we found that Rakuten had 12 times points if you bought something on Viator,
Mhm.
the a tour company we really like, and
Yeah.
but you got 12 times Rakuten points. So spending $200 ended up being like thousands and thousands of points
Yeah.
because of this like deal. So you just keep your eyes open. Like we get like sometimes we get like 1,000 points just from buying like dog food at PetSmart.
Yeah.
Like it's crazy. Like once you know this like
Once you
hack,
know what to look for.
you just the points just roll in
Yeah.
but yeah, so obviously there's probably extra fine tuning of these points, like I could say like the exact dollar amount of each point we had and blah blah
You
blah,
could have gone way more
but
granular
this is
than
a
you did.
very simplified say of like look how much we saved.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, and without going into the nitty gritty of actually using the points
Yeah.
as crazily as some
Yeah.
people do.
So I think if you're somebody that's been interested in the points game and then you start to scrape the surface and you get very, very intimidated, this is a
Mm,
really good entry level strategy that's simple of where to start.
yeah, and just as our little tip, put your points into hotels. You can
Yeah.
stay in some amazing places around the world. It opens up sort of destinations you might not thought were
Yeah.
attainable.
Agreed.
I think
Yeah.
there's more value than, just sitting in a fancy seat for 10 hours, you
Yep.
know?
Yeah. I'd
That's
agree.
just me. Yeah.
I mean, I would love to be in business class more than we are, but
Yeah.
I
I'd
understand
rather
the
take more
strategy.
trips
Yeah.
than
I think
take
that's
one
ultimately what it
really.
comes down to. We'd
Yeah.
rather take more trips and be slightly uncomfortable getting there and getting back
Yeah.
than
Than like using all of our points on one trip
yeah.
and done and dusted for the year,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So, but no, I think that's it. That
Okay.
wraps up today's podcast, right? I
Yeah,
think
I think that's it.
that's our little explainer of how much we saved
Yeah.
this year in miles and points, a little history on how we sort of got started doing it, and what our favorite travel credit cards are.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, thanks
Thanks so
for
much.
watching. We'll catch you in the next one.
Bye.